Hi there everybody, this is David, and I've just got to say, Octopath Traveler does not miss. The first two games were masterpieces, and then everybody and their mother said that their mobile game was great, but I never played it because, mobile. But now we have Octopath Traveler 0 here, and I've had a chance to play this for over a month now, thanks to Square Enix giving me an early access review key. Thank you so much for that. And I've got to say, this here is definitely not just a port of a mobile game. This is a proper console experience, fully rebuilt and fully rebalanced with no gacha whatsoever. And I do want to tell you all about it in my full review. And I definitely do think that's worth a sub as you come and you join my party and you level on up with me. Your sub, your like, and your hype helps me out a ton. Thank you so much. It really does mean the world to me. And now let's dive right on into this year's last best release. One thing that you are going to want to know is that your demo save data does carry right on into the full game, so no time will be wasted there. Also, it does feature both English and Japanese voice acting too, and even though this does take place in the same world as Octopath Traveler 1, you do not need to have played any Octopath games in order to understand it. And you'll also get rewards if you have saved data from Octopath Traveler 1 or 2, or even Dragon Quest 1, 2, or 3 HD 2D remakes, which is such a nice touch. I always like being rewarded for playing these games. All Octopath games are a standalone adventure, similar to something like Final Fantasy, and as a prequel, this one takes place before the other two games anyway. However, if you have played the previous games, you will be happy to know that characters from the first game do appear in this game, and they can even join up in your party. And speaking of characters, progression works differently here too. Whereas in the previous Octopath games, you chose one of 8 different characters and then played through their story and then collected the other 7 characters, then played through their stories, here it's kind of turned on its head. Instead of doing that, you actually just create your own main character, and you can customize them as you see fit, from their appearance, to their skills, to their favorite food, even their beginning job class, and some starting items. Then after all of that, and after you're also through with the starting prologue, you don't actually progress through your character's story. You instead progress through the villain's story, and while you are completing their stories, you'll encounter and recruit other characters to join your cause. As you defeat each villain and finish out their chapter, you'll obtain their Ring of Power, and as there are 8 rings to collect, that is where the Octopath name comes into play. You'll begin the game with 1 ring, which kind of acts as like your limit break, but as you defeat more villains and collect more rings, you'll get more and more limit breaks that you can do, which leads me straight into the combat system, so let's talk about that. The core Octopath gameplay is still intact. You're still going to be breaking shields, exposing weaknesses, stacking boost points, and of course, opening up a big old can of whoop-ass once the enemy's cracked open. But what really changes the game is the introduction of the 8 character battles. Now, you don't get 8 turns. Instead, your party's divided into pairs, and each pair gets a turn. So you have 8 characters in battle, but 4 turns. However, each turn does let you swap between the 2 characters in that pairing. So if your warrior's ready to smash some shields, but you need some healing immediately, you're going to want to swap out the warrior and put in your cleric within the same pair. That gives fights new layer of strategy without turning the screen into a cluttered disaster. And because of this system, you can really utilize all the characters in the cast, but the swapping mechanic does make every character feel usable instead of forgotten. Unlike some other RPGs where you can recruit 44 frickin' characters but then only use 3 of them. One of my favorite parts of Octopath Traveler 0 is the town of Wishvale. Whenever I first heard that you had to rebuild a town, I was like, ugh, more Harvest Moon cozy crap. But, whenever I actually got into it, I really enjoyed it. It acts as your base of operations, and rebuilding it becomes one of the most fun things that you can do here, and it's such a welcome diversion from the rest of the game's deeply dark, painful, and political storyline. As you explore around the world, you'll be finding crafting materials like little sparklies on the ground, and you'll also encounter people out in the towns who want to move to Wishvale, which is really reminiscent of the immigrant town in Dragon Quest VII, but pretty more intuitive. Every resident contributes something different, whether it's a material supply, a new shop, or building upgrades. It gives the world a sense of progression that the previous games never really had. Path actions are fixed too, and I cannot stress how much I love this. In previous games, if you wanted to use a different path action, you had to rotate the party members like you were swapping out Pokemon or something. But here in Zero, only your protagonist can perform the path actions, and he can perform every single path action that you need him to, so you don't have to go into the cafe and swap out your party if you want to steal or beat somebody up or whatever. So he can do the inquiring, the purchasing, the challenging, the stealing, the entreating, all of it. It all just depends on the NPC, not your party composition. It is such a clean, quality of life improvement that going back to the older games kind of feels a little bit medieval nowadays. Exploration in general is dramatically better thanks to the new minimap. Instead of just like a circle with vague icons, Zero gives you a real map that has actual structure. You can even pull up a larger map with the L2 button, which makes navigating complex dungeons so much easier. You'll also run into elite enemies wandering around the overworld, each marked by a color indicator that warns you like how badly they're about to destroy you. And if you can beat them though, they will drop some valuable equipment as well as materials that allow you to upgrade your buildings in Wishvale, so they are absolutely worth hunting down. The story structure is the final piece of the puzzle, and honestly, this might be like the best narrative setup in the entire series. Because instead of having 8 disconnected character stories, you start as the one protagonist, build up your town, and then branch on into the arcs of the 3 villain masters, power, wealth, and fame, and then all these tie directly back to the rings, the stakes of the continent, and the upgrades that you bring back to Wishvale. It feels cohesive in a way that Octopath never really felt before. There's a real sense of direction, a real main questline, and optional content that actually feeds back into the heart of the story. It doesn't feel like 8 separate storylines like the previous games did. This one actually feels like one cohesive unit. It's just great. But now, let me rant for a second because it wouldn't be my video without a little bit of a ranting, and I have one major complaint that annoys me every single time that I play the Octopath games. Dashing. Why, in the year of the Lord 2025, am I still required to hold down the B button to run? Why is that still the default? Why isn't running the default and walking you have to hold down the B button? Why can't I just toggle it like in every single other game? And then, to make matters worse, dashing increases your encounter rate. So the game forces you to hold down the B button constantly, then punishes you with more random battles for daring to move faster. It is a ridiculous design choice that should have been fixed, 2 games ago. My thumb deserves better. Okay, rant over. So with all that said, Octopath Traveler 0 might actually be like the strongest entry in the entire series, I've got to say. It is definitely not some afterthought mobile port thing. It is a full-on console experience that I feel actually eclipses the other games in the series as far as I'm concerned. It fixes all that disjointed storytelling, and it gives your character a real role. It streamlines the path actions, it modernizes exploration, and it improves combat without sacrificing the identity of the franchise. I just love the 8-character battle system and the giant recruitable cast too. It feels so fresh, and Wishvale just ties everything together with a sense of community and progression that makes the world feel pretty alive. So I've gotta say, Octopath Traveler 0 definitely gets my full recommendation. This game here is a 10/10 RPG if I've ever seen one. Thank you so much for watching, and if you did enjoy this review, be sure to level up and join my party by subscribing, drop a like, and let me know in the comments how you are enjoying the game. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Have a good day.